Hey there everyone, my name is Jaycee Gaspar. I'm a full-time scientist, part-time content creator, and card maker. I'm so excited to introduce my first collection from Spellbinders, Jack of All Trades, a collection of classic images inspired by playing cards. You're getting an exclusive class taught by me for purchasing the entire Jack of All Trades collection. I look forward to showing you how you can intermingle this entire collection. Whether you're crafting for a birthday or just because, you will always have an ace up your sleeve when it comes to adding that personal touch. Let's first talk about the color choices I decided for this series of cards. The color palette that I'm going to be showcasing on Jack of All Trades is Raven, Merlot, Saffron, and Alabaster. In addition to these cardstock colors, I'm also bringing in brushed gold. This is also a Spellbinders cardstock, but any gold metallic cardstock will do, and just your standard white cardstock. The main element of my card will come from Kaleidoscope Noble Suits. These are all the dies that are included in this set. When die cut and assembled, this set of layering dice creates this beautiful stained glass / kaleidoscope effect. So here's the heart, diamond, spade, and club. For my card, I'm going to use only the heart and spade images. And after die cutting each of their respective images, you'll glue and stack the layers just as shown here. Staying true to playing cards, my set of dies on the left will be red, and I'll cut those from Merlot. And then my spade on the right will be black. I'll use Raven to cut those. So the fine line dice are on top. Again, this is Merlot and Raven. I'll cut these middle elements from brushed gold cardstock. Then I'll die cut the most solid layer from Raven cardstock. And now that I have all my die cut pieces, I can work on assembling my main element. It's really easy to glue and align these pieces. All you have to do is simply align the outermost outline. Here's the completed heart. I'll repeat that for the spade. So starting from the back, that's Raven. Then on top of Raven will be brushed gold. And then I'll glue the finer outline Raven die cut layer on top of my brushed gold stack. I'll set both of these images aside to dry underneath an acrylic block and die cut 2 more shapes from brushed gold cardstock. The largest die set in my collection, Reversible Royal Court, has this set of crown images. I'll also cut this from brushed gold cardstock so that I end up with these 2 elements. Another die set that we'll be using in my collection is Pip and Rank. We will use this set of dies for all 3 cards. To mirror the 2 suits that I already die cut from Kaleidoscope Noble Suits, I'll use the spade and the heart. I'll die cut the heart with Merlot cardstock, and I'll die cut the spade from Raven. And then I want to also die cut the ace pip from Merlot and Raven so that I end up with this arrangement of images. So I die cut the spade and the ace pip from Raven, and then I cut 2 of the hearts and ace pips from Merlot. I also cut these 2 pieces of cardstock with my paper trimmer. They are cut down to 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. And I'll use a 1/4 inch cropping tool to round the corners of all of these pieces. This isn't a necessary step. I just feel like it really enforces the theme of these playing cards. Then I can start the assembly of these main elements. These white corner rounded pieces are going to act like miniature playing cards. So I'm gluing the ace pip and the heart rank to the corner of my playing card. And the reason why I have 2 Merlot die cuts of the ace pip and the heart rank is so that I can also glue down the images on the other corner of my miniature card. So I'll repeat this with the other ace and the heart, and then I'll glue down the Raven ace pip and the Raven spade rank to the top left corner of my miniature card. Don't worry that your bottom right card is blank, because when we stack the 2 cards together, you won't even see it. But for now, we'll finish the assembly on my miniature playing cards. I'll glue down the Kaleidoscope Noble Suits heart to the center of my heart playing card. Then I'll do the same for the spade. Then on top of these images, I'll glue down the die-cut crown, one for the spade, then the other for the heart. To make my miniature card stand out just a little bit more from a background, I'm going to use the Deluxe Deck Better Press plate, an A2 panel of alabaster, that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'll press this image into alabaster using an ink that is similar to saffron, and I'll do that in the Spellbinders Better Press system. So for now, I'll set these aside. On my magnetic chase, I'll first align the alabaster cardstock to the A2 guide. I like to use a double-sided tape to hold my cardstock to the platen, and then I'll bring my platen to the chase and pick up the cardstock with the double-sided tape. Then I can center my Deluxe Deck Better Press plate, following the A2 guide found on the magnetic chase. I like to use these 2 points here and this vertical alignment guide to get my Better Press plate centered on my magnetic chase. Then I'll use a dye ink similar in color to saffron and completely fill the Better Press plate. Then I can return my alabaster panel to the magnetic chase and run this through my Spellbinders machine. And then I have a really quick and simple background to offset my miniature playing cards. Now I can easily remove this from the platen. So let's say you did not get your image centered on your panel as much as you'd like. You can easily trim off the margins of your Better Press panel and then use that 1/4 inch crop to round off the corners of the image. The end result is roughly an 1/8 of an inch trim on all sides. And then like I mentioned, I can use the 1/4 inch rounder to get these last bits off of my panel. For now, I will also set this aside, as well as another perfectly cut A2 panel of alabaster, so that we can add the sentiment to this card. From the Shuffling Sentiments Better Press and die set, I pressed the We're Two of a Kind sentiment onto some alabaster cardstock. I used the coordinating die to cut out the sentiment, as well as the coordinating banner die, also cut from alabaster. And I used all 3 of these elements to create an offset banner that says Two of a Kind. And then with my die cut ribbon tail, I'll fold the cardstock along the score line so that I end up with a folded banner. Before I glue down these 2 pieces together, I've really enjoyed coloring this back piece with a black Copic or any sort of alcohol-based marker. To me, it looks just a little bit more finished. To me, adding that little bit of black to the back of the banner just makes it look a little bit more finished and polished. And now that I have the banner glued down, I can start bringing back all of my elements to my card. First, I'll bring back the alabaster A2 cut panel and my Deluxe Deck saffron colored panel. I foam mounted and centered this piece to complete my background. Before I add my focal pieces to the front of my background, I'm going to use this watercolor pan in some water. And with a fine-tipped water brush, I'm going to add splatter throughout this background. I just think it's going to create some asymmetry on this already pretty symmetrical card. After the gold splatter dried, I glued it down to a folded note card base. Then I'm going to add my focal pieces to the front of my card. So I have my Raven Ace Spade on the left, covered by the Merlot Ace Heart on the right. I added foam tape of varying thicknesses to the back of my miniature cards, then add them to my card base. Then I foam mounted my sentiment banner on top of my miniature cards. And that finishes my Two of a Kind pairing, featuring the Kaleidoscope Noble Suits as my main element to this card. For my second card, I'll be featuring the Enchanting Suit Facets. This is a Better Press set, and the illustration on this set is very intricate and mirrors the design on the Deluxe Deck Better Press plate, as well as the Kaleidoscope Noble Suits die set. For my second card, I'll be focusing only on this club Better Press plate, because these images nicely fill an A2 sized card front. You can certainly use a fresh panel of the brushed gold cardstock if you want to, but what I've done on my Better Press system is aligned the club image so that I can better press the club onto this brushed gold cardstock. I'll ink up the image as I normally do and run this through my Spellbinders Platinum machine. so that I end up with this focal point on my card. Using a pair of scissors, I'll fussy cut this image from the brushed gold cardstock. Alternatively, you can use the opaque black foil from Spellbinders and do the same technique with your hot foiling machine, and you'll also get stunning results that way. Then from pip and rank, I cut the club and the ace pip so that I can have them ready when I assembled my card. Now I'm going to switch this up and make it a fun little birthday card. From the reversible Royal Court die set are these sets of dies for a flower, as well as this one for a little chalice. I cut the chalice and the stems twice from alabaster, then the liquid portion and flower petals from Merlot. To assemble the chalice, all you have to do is align the beverage to the back of the chalice die, and then to the stem you align the base rose image on top of the circle guide, and then you glue the foreground petals to the front of the base rose, and the alignment is on the bottom of the petals. To make my sentiment banner for this card, I used the Deal Me In for Fun Better Press plate to make this banner on Raven cardstock, and I used a gold pigment ink to press the sentiment onto the Raven cardstock. You can also use your glimmer system to make this sentiment banner, and I also die cut the coordinating banner ribbons so that I can finish my sentiment. Onto a panel of white cardstock, I'll use the Deluxe Deck Better Press plate, and this time I'll use this to create a black fill on my background. Of course, this would also look stunning on porcelain cotton card panel, or if you have bisque, this would also look really stunning with black on top. But now I'm ready to assemble this card, now that all my focal elements are ready. Again, I'm going to add the splatter all over this background. I'm going to glue down my pip and rank to the bottom right and top left portions of my background. Then I will center and foam mount the Better Press club on top of my background. Before I glue down my chalice and rose, I want to arrange them in exactly the same way on opposite sides of my card. So I'm going to do this right side up first. And once you have one of the images stacked, you can put the other one on top just to make sure that the alignment is exactly the same. So now I have my chalice and rose arranged in the exact same way. And then while this is drying, I can add my sentiment banner on top of my Better Press club. Then I can tuck in the folded banners underneath the club. I think adding the ribbons underneath the club gives it a little bit more dimension to offset the black background. Then I can glue down my chalice and rose stem to opposite sides of the sentiment banner. That finishes the showcase of the Enchanting Suit facets with other pairings in the Jack of All Trades collection. I love that you can use the Better Press system with your hot foiling system, like the Spellbinders Glimmer set, because that really extends the versatility of this collection. And if you are one to really mass produce cards, the Better Press system, along with Jack of All Trades, can quickly add so many cards to your stash. To finish my trio of cards, I'm going to bring back out the Enchanting Suit facets. This is the diamond rank that I'm going to be working with. This will act as a background embellishment for the main parts of my card. I don't want this to compete too much with my main element, so I'm going to do a tone-on-tone Better Press impression onto Merlot cardstock. And in my dye ink stash, I'm going to look for an ink that is darker than Merlot, and I'll use that to transfer the ink from the Better Press plate onto my cardstock panel. I have two impressions of this on my Merlot cardstock. And then using a straight edge and a craft knife, I'm going to cut both of these out, similar to how I cut the Better Press impression on the previous card. And here are my two cut Merlot diamonds. In addition to these two shapes, I do want to add another pip and rank element to this card. So I'll use the diamond shape, and then from this die set, I'll use Merlot and cut the queen and the jack. So I have my queen, jack, and two diamonds to embellish my card. Now I can work on the main element to this card. I'm going to set all of these aside and pull out the dice for reversible royal court. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of elements to talk about for reversible royal court. Typically, you would stick to one face card, but I wanted to show you other playful possibilities like a Valentine's Day card that you can use this set for. So I've die cut a lot of elements, as you can see. All of the skin tone elements are cut from white cardstock. The hair elements are cut from saffron, including the mustache. The main dyes for the clothes, which are these 5, I've cut from Raven cardstock. The rose and the lips are on one die set together. I cut those from Merlot. There are hemmed and jewelry embellishments and the crown that I've cut from brushed gold cardstock. I die cut the other clothing elements from a mix of Merlot and saffron. The rose stem and the handle to the scepter I cut from Raven. The male shirt elements I cut from brushed gold and the inside portion from Merlot. The scepter top itself I intermingled brushed gold and Merlot, just like the inside of the shirt. The base shield is cut from saffron, its supporting piece from Merlot. And then finally the beret is a mix of Merlot, the band in Raven, the feathered tufts in saffron, and then this brushed gold circular element. I hope that covers everything. You'll notice I only used pieces of the crown, as well as only the handle portion of the scepter, because this can also be used for the axe. And there are other dies that I didn't use in this card that are included in Reversible Royal Court. This is just one combination that shows almost all of the dies in the set. If it helps, pause this video here so that you can match the dies to their respective colors if you decide to recreate this card for yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to take away the die portions and we can start assembling our main focal element of this card. I'm going to start by assembling some of these smaller pieces right away, just so that I don't lose them. I'll start by gluing the Raven band to the Merlot beret, just like so. Then I can glue down the feather and its supporting piece to my Merlot beret base, and that finishes the beret for the jack. The assembly of the rose stem should look familiar to you as we used it on the previous card. All I need to do is put the front row of petals on the base and then the base petals onto the black stem, and that's for the queen. Using the etching on the base shield, I'll put Merlot on top of saffron, and that will finish the shield. For the scepter, I need this band I cut from Merlot that goes on the base of the scepter, as well as this Merlot top piece. And then I can align this whole element to this inner portion that goes in the scepter, just like that. Then I can take this small handle piece and put the two together. So there's that element. And just make sure you leave enough of the scepter handle so that it sticks out of the hand. Then I'm going to layer these accessory pieces to the clothes. So these Merlot outline pieces go on top of the saffron. I'll leave these 2 pieces alone for now. That goes on the sleeve of the queen. And then this sash goes on the jack or the king. So I have the Merlot piece on top of the saffron base. Now that I have most of my smaller accessories put together, I'm actually going to go ahead and put the lips and the jewel on the queen because they're really small and I just don't want to lose them. After putting those 2 pieces on the queen, I'll add the sleeve embellishment to both of the arms, so that's these smaller pieces. And I cut these from brushed gold. To the jack, I'm going to add his inner shirt, and that's this piece here that I cut from Merlot. And I'll add that piece to this die. And while we're at this point with the smaller pieces, I'll go ahead and also add in his little mustache, like so. I'm going to move these other pieces off to the side real quick so that we can just focus on assembling these 2 halves. So I kind of like to work my way from the top down now that I have all of these smaller pieces put together. For both the female and male gendered die cuts, the hair slides on into the face die cut, just like that. And then there's an etching on the queen where the hairline sits. So you kind of push the face die up to that point of the hairline. But before I permanently glue any of these pieces down, I'm going to make the irises not yellow. So what I'll quickly do with a pencil is just add a dot to where I think the eyes should go. And then I'll use whatever black pen I have. In my case, it's just an alcohol-based marker. And I'll fill in the general area of where the pupil will be. And then I can apply glue to the back of the face, slide the head back into the hair, meeting up with the black pupils I just drew in. I'll do the same with the queen. Again, she has etching that you meet with the hairline. So all I've got to do is push the hair onto the face until that etching meets up. And then I can press down the glue. So there are my two heads. I'll glue down my beret to the jack, and the queen will get the crown. The majority of the headpieces are done, so then I can add the clothes. You'll see after this point, all of the etching will begin to line up on each of the dies. So I'm adding the jack and the queen larger die cuts. And again, these are the raven die cut pieces. Then each of these pieces also has a collared embellishment. So these are all die cut from brushed gold. So that's the V on the jack and more of this open U on the queen. Then the king and the jack get this sash, and the alignment of this sash meets on the shoulder right to the waistline. This is the queen's right sleeve. It doesn't have any additional pieces, but I'm not going to glue this down quite yet. The queen's left sleeve has etching for these two pieces here, and all I've got to do is glue them down and match the etching to the cardstock. The king and the jack have this puffed sleeve on their right arm, and just like the queen, the etching of these two accessory pieces match on the main sleeved element, just like so. These two pieces go along the waistband to hide the seam of where your two face cards fit together. So if you're cutting two queens, two jacks, two kings, this is what goes in the middle, but for the end result of this card, you won't see this bit here. So I'm actually not going to put it on and just save it for another project. But now I can start assembling some of these bigger pieces to complete this die. So I'm going to start with the jack, and I'm putting his right sleeve down first. And then with his clenched fist, I'll slide the scepter into his opening so that he's holding the scepter like so. Then with these two pieces together, I can glue down his exposed arm to the sleeve to finish his right arm. His left arm is hidden behind this shield, so I will carefully glue that down on top of this piece. Now for the queen, she gets this puffy sleeve and then this cradling hand. Then I will slide the rose into her open palm. Then I can add this cape piece that drapes over her left shoulder. And then really the last thing to do is to center your top piece. Turn over your bottom piece, and these two halves meet together right at their waistline to finish the assembly of the royal cords. Now this is where I mentioned that gold waistband comes into play. So you would just nestle that to hide the seam between the two halves. But what I'm going to do instead to keep the two halves together is just take a scrap piece of cardstock like this and use this piece to sort of bandage the two halves together so that I can manipulate them both at the same time. Just like that. Now these two bits are held together with that scrap piece of cardstock. Now all I need is my sentiment, and then I can start fully assembling this card. I thought this sentiment was fitting for a Valentine's Day themed card, anniversary, and then of course I cut the two little banner pieces as well, and I'm going to do the same thing as the first card, which is color in this back piece on both of the dies. I just think it looks a little bit more finished when it's fully assembled this way. Now I can start putting everything on my card base or onto a panel. Here are the other embellishments that I had earlier. Onto a panel of porcelain cotton cardstock, I dry embossed the deluxe deck better press plate just to add a little bit more texture to the background. Then I will arrange my two diamond better press impressions, and that's on the top left and bottom right portions of my background panel. Since my queen is on top, I'll add the Q die cut to the top left, and then the J for Jack on the bottom right. I'll glue down the smaller diamond ranks underneath each of the letters. Then with my main face piece, I'll add a bunch of foam tape to the back and then center that on my panel. Then before I seal the deal with my sentiment banner, I'll add gold metallic splatter. Then after the metallic splatter dries, I can add my sentiment banner. Then I can match up the ribbon tails underneath. Then after adding this panel to a folded note card base, that finishes my final example featuring the reversible Royal Court die set in my first collection with Spellbinders, Jack of All Trades. Those are my 3 projects using the whole Jack of All Trades collection from Spellbinders. If you make any project with my collection, I would love to see it on Instagram. Please tag me at jaycee.gaspar and at Team Spellbinders so that we can take a look at your gorgeous creations. Thank you so much for letting my Jack of All Trades collection be a part of your crafting space. Remember to deal out some creativity and never stop making.